his special gold pen, and he's going to autograph anybody that wants their book signed by Mark. So Mark will be back there. And what I will do in a few moments is ask all of us to be up here in case you have a reason you want to direct a question, or we can stand in front or whatever, and you can direct if you have any questions. Just a couple quick things. I want to remind you all that while there are many activities for May Day, some of you saw this is actually set in the type by hand at the same size as the flyers that were distributed for the Haymarket rally on May 4th of 1886 that gave rise to the tragedy, and we call it a tragedy. I want you to know, and some people, over the years would talk about, it was us against the police. And we're inviting 175 people to come to beat police. We have costumes for everyone. There will be a coat for everybody, because we're not protesting the police at this. We're reenacting history. And in fact, we are going to mention the names of the police who died, because they are part of the tragedy in this event. It is the state and it is the corporate agenda that were the problems in those days, and Inspector Bonfield, of course. But everybody that died in that event is part of a tragedy and is a victim of the struggle that was taking place for the 8-hour day. So I hope that you'll come to this reenactment, and students especially, because it's going to be a very unusual event with musicians. John Langford from the Macons and Environmental Encroachment is going to perform. And there is going to be a 3-part to it, as well as our dedication of the plaque. One of the events that's not listed on here, on the back side, is we have now had Steve Franklin, former journalist from the Chicago Tribune, one of the only labor journalists left. He's no longer a labor journalist since the Tribune refuses to recognize labor and doesn't have a labor journalist, but he reports on the Middle East. He is convening a workshop, or rather a forum, on Monday, April 25th at the Haymarket Brewery and Pub. And it turns out that the Haymarket Brewery and Pub is such a good place that we're doing a couple events there, including showing the movie of Sacco and Vanzetti on Wednesday the 27th, because that's a story about labor and immigration, and it's another one of the stories that we all experience. And Mark's saying I should sit down, but I want to read, I do whatever Mark says. I want to read the final words, and these were the words of Albert Parsons as he was preparing his final statement. And I think it captures the heart and the spirit of why we remember and what this is all about. And Clarence Darrow wrote about it and showed it to Governor Altgeld and said, when Governor Altgeld in 1892 got elected for 1893, said, you must look at the record. You must look at the record of this unfair trial and do something about it. And Peter Altgeld had the perseverance to do that. He had the courage to do it. He lost his career because of it, but he pardoned the martyrs. And these are the words of Albert Parsons. If you think by hanging us you can stamp out the labor movement from which downtrodden millions, the millions who toil in want and misery, expect salvation, if this is your opinion, then hang us. Here you will tread upon a spark, but there and there, behind you and in front of you and everywhere, flames will flare up. If it is a subterranean fire, you cannot put it out. And so those of us believe that the subterranean fire has been burning for 125 years, and there are some people in Wisconsin and Ohio and Maine and a few other places who are causing people to realize that now the flames are rising up again and that people need to understand this concept of collective action and solidarity. So you can do your part by participating in these events. Thank you very much.
Etc. to learn about this rich history that we're talking about. Because not only that some of us are related to these folks at the cemetery, but, couldn't or shouldn't a classroom learn about the House Un-American Activities Committee? Do we not see things vaguely similar to that happening now, encouraged by some of these would-be candidates? Within the biographies are people who were involved in the Palmer raids. There are people who supported Harold Washington. so many different people came from different venues. There's one person whose bio was put together who said that if George W. Bush was reelected, that he would leave the country. And he moved to Paris with his wife, to France with his wife. So there are really very thrilling and very difficult biographies from well-known people like Joe Hill to unknown folks who we need to know about. So thank you all, and let's have questions.
For each of you, what was the most interesting or exciting thing that you learned or discovered during your work on this project?
Well, I think when the outgrowth of doing these cemetery walks, and I should have identified our president Kelly Klein is here from the Historical Society, and our board member Peggy Cinco worked in the book, and some other people in the audience I see are members of the Historical Society. What we learned is, first of all, when you start giving these walks and you learn about these people, you want to make sure that those stories aren't just told one time in an afternoon, but they're told again and again. So we kind of moved into a guidebook so that we could sort of not record every story, because that's impossible, but just try to get more of the highlights and make sure that we're kind of keep on gathering this information. And I think the day will come was one of the sources we went to and we looked for that we referred to in our book also. And I think what I learned is how frustrating it is that there are so many stories. You keep on finding more and more and more. It's a wonderful problem, but it's a very frustrating thing because there are so many interesting people buried there. And just within the labor section in the area, just right around, as you're pointing out in your new revised book, it just, I can't believe this person's buried there. I can't, we didn't know this really. It's not generally known until you really pour through the records. So I think that tenacity to keep on going after those stories is something that I've learned through this.
For me, it was how difficult it is to make such a simple shape as the floral arrangement. Unbelievable. It is, in a way, abstract thinking and very organic at the same time. Positive and negative spaces, recreating distance, although I had probably the most photographic documentation that I've ever had on any project. It was still more difficult than I ever expected.
Well, we each were asked a question, so I'll just quickly respond. I worked really intensely to dig up all these bios, and I put the word out. I contacted the Communist Party, the IWW, Socialist Workers' Party, and all sorts of individuals. And 2 weeks ago, I was with some old friends, and they said, well, they just came to see their brother and their parents at the cemetery. And I missed 2 people who were there. So, this is an ongoing, learning experience. But for those of you who have access to the internet, this booklet is online at the Illinois Labor History Society, and we will continually update the biographies. We ask you for help, and as we get help in the door, we will add that, and we will add new graves and new bios, etc. So, yeah. And
for me, oh gosh, it may seem so trivial, but I didn't realize how hard it is to raise money, especially during a recession. And for all the people who are passionate about this, to still ask people to give money and who think that this is the world's most important monument, when you ask them for money, don't necessarily want to give money. This includes institutions, labor unions, all who say that this is very important, but the struggle of the recession, I guess, kind of reverberates, and people just don't want to give it up. And so we will meet our goal, I'm sure, but that's why it's still important for us And that was, because I've had the passion for years now for the restoration, as our organization has.
Yeah, my question is, besides cemeteries and the Haymarket, what does your society do to bring like labor history alive in areas of the city? Okay, I was born in Cicero. I know that there are at least one area that used to be a big union hall, used to have Lithuanian radicals and anarchists, Lithuanian Liberty Hall. I know in Berlin there's the Sokol on 16th Street, free thinkers, Czech socialists, union people. What are you guys doing to bring stuff like that alive?
Great question. We do, our goal, when I do workshops and slideshows, I always say, bringing labor history alive. That's the whole point. And so there's a couple things within that question. One is that it takes money, believe it or not. And so because we're a volunteer organization and most volunteers that we have work for a living, it's hard to get people to participate because we need more people to provide tours, to learn how to give tours. And when we give tours, we excite people, and then more people want more tours. And there's a resource issue involved in that. There's a knowledge gap, but when somebody like yourself brings to us the attention of something, and if you would email us or call us, we would say, hey, this is something we need to investigate because we're the Illinois Labor History Society, and we have helped with the Mother Jones Monument. We've helped with the Stockyard Gate over at where the stockyards were, and we helped with the Gomper statue, and we've helped with the both labor Haymarket statues, and we give tours and we have murals and we try to bring people to the various sites where important labor events took place. And so that is our mission, to educate, arouse interest in labor history so people realize, because labor history is American history is labor history. They're totally the same, one and the same, because of what we see about social change and how it takes place. So I think the answer is that is our mission, but we need more resources because we pay two people a very meager part-time salary just to kind of run the office, and it's ridiculous. But I think things are going to change because I think people are beginning to realize through what the Haymarket represents that hopefully we'll be able to raise enough money to raise more money, and then be in a position to have the resources to do those sorts of things.
I've been to